Ministry of culture keep the big shows. One set of girls and banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. They hiding corruption inside the cup, look how we evil set up. The people fed up. Every picture you take and promise you make, everything you do is about clouds. Then you come into me for I shake your hand, there's nothing to smile about. Corruption inside every sector, but when it comes to them they send you. Try investigate efficiency, right? Go talk to Baratans too. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up. The people fed up. I done fed up on the dirty water, low pressure, want scream and tell somebody. Imagine 1500 US and they're telling me super salary. I done fed up on the unemployment racism and the lie they say one Guyana. Cause when you look with the oil money going, circulate with one set of banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up. The people
there and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jurong?
Su? Oh, Su? My relationship? Nothing. He's a tenant in my place, yeah.
And he's a good friend of yours?
Yes, yes, he is a friend of ours.
Pleasant good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Straight Up here on Bench Up Radio 107.1 FM. For this evening, I am your host, Wayne Caesar, along with my co-host, the Honorable Mr. Christopher Jones. Mr. Jones, welcome to Straight Up this evening, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much, Wade, for having me on the program.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, Chris is my co-host. That means that he has equal powers as myself and can carry the show in whatever direction he does please to. So, Chris, you can start by leading off tonight's program. But just before you get started, let me just say to our audience, please share the link and like tonight's program. There is a lot that is going to be discussed this evening. We cannot allow a talent as Christopher Jones to pass across us, and we don't get all that we possibly can out of him. So, Chris, tonight you are going to be on blast, my friend. Go right ahead.
On blast.
Get started. Yes, sir.
All right. So thank you very much again, Wayne, and thanks very much to 107.1 FM and Mark Benchcap for allowing us this opportunity. What is noteworthy to mention, the fact that you said that I'm co-host, ideal because it may be a new profession. Noting that earlier today, the Parliament of Guyana has been prorogued, hence the new display on your screen, former MP Christopher Jones. So perhaps I may be doing quite a number of these programs with you going forward. But of course, tonight, as you mentioned, Wayne, we want to take the opportunity to iterate to all and sundry Guyanese that 2025, September 1, is one of the most important days in the history of this country. It is an opportunity in which the Guyanese people will finally have a chance to bring about real change in Guyana, to put an end of the corruption that we've seen display, to put an end to the blatant discrimination against certain Guyanese that we've seen on display by the People's Progressive Party Civic, a political institution that is known for the number of years that they've been in existence to have this sort of behavior once they're in office. September 1st, as I mentioned, provides that opportunity for Guyanese to make that change. And of course, the APNU coalition continues to extend an olive branch to all and sundry to be part of the coalition. So together, we will have the strength to ensure the removal of the People's Progressive Party Civic. On Sunday, this Sunday coming, the 6th of July, the APNU will officially launch its election campaign, and this will be had on the Square of the Revolution. It starts from 4 p.m. And of course, there will be a live broadcast that will start at 12 noon, and that broadcast will run for the entire period, right up to the culmination of the rally on the Square of the Revolution. The culmination will feature the presidential candidate of the APNU, the Honorable Aubrey C. Norton, and of course, the Prime Ministerial candidate, Jorita Fernandez, and just a few of the new candidates that will be part of the APNU. And of course, as I mentioned before, this is the official launch of the APNU coalition campaign.
Okay, well put, Chris, and that is an excellent start there. So, like you would have said earlier, the proclamations has now been signed. So essentially, we can now say that it is game on, right? So Chris, because you have the expertise, I don't, and you're going to be educating myself as well as the listening and viewing audience. When the proclamations are signed, what does that mean in relation to gazetted? If you can explain.
Right. Well, essentially, the signing is one. Just like I think 3 weeks ago when we heard an announcement by Irfan Ali that elections are going to be had on September 1. Subject to correction, just at about 12 o'clock today, I can confirm to all and sundry that the date that Irfan Ali announced 3 weeks ago for elections to be had on the 1st of September has not been gazetted. I repeat, has not been gazetted. So legally or by law, it is just an announcement that was made by Irfan Ali 3 weeks ago. It has not been gazetted. Similarly, with the proclamation that was signed today, that too will have to be gazetted to make that official.
Okay, so it's these things have been done. The announcement has been made. The proclamations has been signed, but until it has been gazetted, it is not yet official. Right, Chris? You agree? Right?
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So essentially, Chris, can elections be moved from September 1st to maybe a later date in the year at this time here? They can, announce a later date if they want to. And is that legal?
Well, it would be legal because, as I mentioned before, the announcement which was made by Irfan Ali 3 weeks ago has not been made legal by way of being gazetted. So therefore, September 1 is just the date that Irfan Ali announced that elections are going to be had. Until that is gazetted, it is not legal. So therefore, they can move that day from September 1. And it has to be, and therefore the election has to be had on or before the 2nd of November 2025. Because note that the Constitution allows that elections could be had anytime before the date which will mark 5 years since the president was sworn in. But it allows you as well 3 months after that initial date. Irfan Ali was sworn in on the 2nd of August. And yes, if you count 3 months after that, it will put you at November 2nd. So okay, that is the timeline.
Okay, anyway, between September 1st and November 2nd.
But, correct. But Wayne, I am certain that your viewers now would be asking themselves the question, and they're right. How is it this political party that announced elections to be had on the 1st of September, but to date has not gazetted that date? And they've been out there on all their press conferences or whatever the case be saying that they're confident of a landslide victory and all of this. But why hasn't the date been gazetted? And of course, the truth of the matter is that the People's Progressive Party Civic is in trouble.
Yes.
Irfan Ali, Bharat Jagdeo can host as much press conferences that they want. The reality on the ground, as you heard, the presidential candidate of the APNU, Aubrey Norton, has been saying ad nauseum for years that the work is done on the ground. And when you go in communities, predominantly those communities that are at one time slated stronghold of the People's Progressive Party Civic, and you speak with those individuals, they will whisper to you that they are not comfortable, they don't like the way in which things are going. They agree with us that indeed the resources from the oil and gas industry are going to friends, family, and favorites of the PPP, not the constituencies, not their supporters. It is just going to a very small few people, a clique, if you want to call them that.
That's well, that is so well said, Chris, and that is actually very, very, very correct. So Chris, you know, there's a saying: promises are comfort only for a fool. Okay, and you were so correct, because when you look at the PPPC track record, we look at education. Okay, they're now talking about free education after being in power for almost 5 years. All right, that should have been done in the first year, at least within your first 6 months to a year in government. All right. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
No, but on the same note of education, and this, as rightfully mentioned, Wayne, is what we got to constantly remind people, particularly the younger people who may not be aware. Under the People's National Congress reform, or the People's National Congress, and its years in office, education was free from nursery to the university. It was the People's Progressive Party Civic, when they came to office in 1992, in 1994, instituted charges or fees at the University of Guyana. So that is why when you saw the announcement by Irfan Ali about the abolishing fees at the University of Guyana, it is the PPP correcting the wrong that the PPP did. It was the PPP that instituted fees at the University of Guyana.
Basically reintroducing something that they would have banned themselves. And
exactly.
In the essence of them banning education or depriving Guyanese of education, think about it. Think about all the dreams that the PPPC would have broken and failed Guyanese. You know?
Exactly. And the very leaders of the PPP, they were able to fulfill that dream, or those dreams, because they were beneficiaries of free education from the PNC. The likes of Bharat Jagdeo, Frank Anthony, Gail Teixeira, and the list goes on. These are PPP senior members who benefited from free education under the PNC administration. And not only that, they are correcting the wrong that they did in 1994, but also they're trying to correct the breach of the Constitution of Guyana that they did, because it is a Constitution of Guyana that mandates free education from nursery to university. And that's why we continue to appeal to a lot of the elders in various communities and so forth. Those young people, is no fault of theirs, they just don't know. So many of them are excited, and they should be, that education or the university is going to be free, but they must be told the truth, that it was always free under the PNC, and it was the PPP that introduced fees at the University of Guyana in 1994, and they kept that there, which is a breach of the Constitution as well.
Right. So when Bharat Jagdeo goes to speak on education, he needs to put it into full historical context, so that the young people in Guyana could understand that it is the PPPC that would have abolished education in 1994.
Free education, correct.
Free education, sorry, in 1994. Chris, you know, I wanted to touch with you quickly on how is your preparation? How is the preparation of APNU going thus far in approaching this 2025 general and regional elections? How is prep going? You know, how is everything going for you guys? If you know, just off the top of your head, because you know, just give us some details, as much as you can give us, not internal stuff.
Right, definitely. No, Wade, I must say that noting the fact that the PNC is a mass-based political movement that has been the hustings in this country from inception. It was the PNC via former President Forbes Barnum that Ghana is now an independent nation. And this mass-based political movement has its tentacles, if you want to call it that, in every nook and cranny, in every region, in every village, in every community, in every street. And what has happened very early on, I think initially it started about October 2024, because at that time, the intelligence that we were receiving indicated that the PPP would have been calling a snap elections. And those snap elections could have been either December 2024 or January 2025. And the leadership, via the leader of the PNC, Aubrey Norton, started his political maneuvering since October of 2024, setting up the various units, setting up the various committees, setting up the various youth component, the women component of the party to prepare themselves for the work ahead. Now, juxtapose all of that now to when Irfaan Ali made the announcements that the elections are going to be had on September 1st, 2025. The PNC would have already, or the APNU within the the PNC within the APNU would have already set up its structure. Just earlier today, I returned from Region 6 because I had a task there at a certain part in Region 6. I'll say that much. And just returned back to Georgetown, of course, to be part of this program. And as we speak, you have several executive members of the PNC. You have executive members of the various small parties that are part of the APNU coalition. They were locked in meetings just yesterday. And currently, as we speak, they are in various parts of the country, encouraging people, one, to ensure that they go out there and vote on September 1. Two, to ensure that persons come out on the Square of the Revolution this Sunday from 4 p.m. to be part of the campaign. So in a nutshell, the APNU coalition campaign structure has been up and functioning as of October 2024. What is happening now is essentially just streamlining those arrangements to ensure that on E-Day, the necessary security measures, I would want to say, are put in place at the various polling stations across the country to ensure that we have sufficient people and backup persons to man those polling stations. We know the history of the PPP. We witnessed what transpired in the 2020 elections. We saw what displayed on the lower east coast of Demerara. This time around, I can say for certain, particularly with an individual like Aubrey Norton, who has been in the hustings of this country for a number of years, is that it's going to be very different. And to echo the sentiments expressed by him, and I hold those sentiments to be truth, that if the People's Progressive Party Civic believes that 2025 election, that they can rig it, and believe that there'll be a continuation of the smooth and calm, they are in for another surprise because they have been put on notice by the presidential candidate of the APNU.
Well said. Excellent point. And that was one of the concern, that I had, along with a lot of listeners and viewers. Were the scrutineers prepared? Do we have them lined up? Is the PNCR ready to go? Well, you've done an excellent job putting all of that in a nutshell and answering that question, so we don't have to worry about that. It is that is done, and that is great to know. All right, listen. It is very safe to say here, Honorable Christopher Jones, that the PNCR is the largest party, not by a little, but by so much. Okay, on the side of the opposition, and for that party to have their apparatus in place and is ready for this election speaks a lot, because the Guyanese people on the ground, you can tell their frustrations. They are ready for that change. Question for you. A lot of small parties would have joined on with APNU. Is the door still open for other small parties to join this fight?
Yes, I can see off the bat, yes, the presidential candidate of the APNU has made that pellucid that the doors are always open. The APNU continues to welcome those persons who share the same view as to how Guyana is best to progress, to how we could ensure that the resources of the country, particularly from the oil and gas industry, goes directly to the Guyanese people, how we are able to bring our Guyanese people out of poverty, how we are able to pay our public servants, our police, our soldiers a livable, decent wage and salary, how we are able to provide better health care across this country. Once those parties or persons share those views, the APNU is the place for you.
Well
and the
said.
doors are open. And of course, the doors are open, but right now we're looking at a window that is closing, and that window will close as of the 14th of July, which is nomination day. So all and sundry has until then. And I do hope, Wayne, I want to stress this point.
Okay. Cool.
I recall back in 2015, campaigning then again for the APNU. And you had other parties out there like the Alliance for Change. They were out and about doing their campaign and so forth. It was a mere, can't remember exactly how distant before the elections, that there was an announcement that there is the coalition between the APNU and the AFC. I say to you, and even now just recalling when that announcement was made, even my pores are raising right now, is that when you went on the ground, the people felt and they knew that change was about to happen. You had our Guyanese brothers and sisters of East Indian descent, who then, like now, are threatened, are intimidated by the People's Progressive Party Civic. They fear speaking out. But because of the coalition between the parties, they knew that change was about to come, and they started to get vocal. Persons who had issues that they wanted to raise started raising them without fear. And we went into 2015 elections and we saw the outcome, that we were able to successfully remove the People's Progressive Party Civic. And I say this to say to the parties, to the individuals out there, that if indeed we have one common enemy to the people of Guyana, then there should be absolutely no difficulty, none whatsoever, to prevent us from coming together to go to these elections. I say to people, if you are serious about security of this country, wages and salaries for public servants, allowing young people easy access to own their own homes or land, that they don't have to beg or borrow a loan to pay $500,000 or $1.2 million or $2 million for a plot of land in a country that is 83,000 square miles and a population that is less than 1 million people. And it's an oil producing country. It should not be that difficult. But the political elites in the People's Progressive Party Civic continue to ensure that the resources of this country are held and kept by a few while the others starve. And if you are like-minded like the APNU and the 7 political parties that are part of the APNU coalition, you should have no issue utilizing this small window space that we have before the 14th of July to find common ground, to be part of one mega coalition to remove the hindrance to development that we have in this country.
Which is indeed the PPPC. Well said, well
Correct.
put into context. look, there is still space underneath the big banap for everyone. Come on board, join, negotiate, man. Like the Honorable Christopher Jones would have just said, there's one common enemy here, and that's the PPPC. The destruction of the fabric of Guyana needs to stop forthwith. And look, when I speak of the coalition, I don't want to speak of different parties branch off in there. I want to see one. It must just be one. We must just be able to put up one finger, everyone together. A quorum that will definitely defeat the PPPC. And you know, Chris, before I even move on, I just want you to add a little more context to nomination day and the meaning, you know, the requirements of the parties on that day. Can you please educate myself and the audience?
Sure. Thank you. So first, we had June the 20th, which is the timeline set by the Ghana Elections Commission, in which the various political parties that are contesting or that have expressed the intention to contest the 2025 elections, they had to submit their symbols, the various parties. So within, for example, the APNU coalition, as you know, our symbol is the palm, and inside of the palm features the political parties that are part of the APNU coalition. There is the APNU, there is the Working People's Alliance, just to name a few, that all are a part of the APNU coalition. Now, moving from the 20th of June, in which the submissions had to be made, and the Ghana Elections Commission had to approve those symbols. We note that there were some of the other parties that the Ghana Elections Commission had issues with their symbols. I know that I think a few of them have been able to resolve those issues. Moving now to the 14th of July, which is nomination day. All of the various political parties have to submit their lists of candidates to represent that political party. And of course, part of the stipulation as required by the Ghana Elections Commission, they require signatures. There are certain amount of signatures as required per region, which amounts to, in some cases, could be hundreds, could be thousands of signatures. And on that list, it also features.
Quick.
You want to come in there, Wayne?
Yes, quick. Sure. Yes, I want to come in quick. Signatures. Whose signatures? Signatures of the electorate, or, you know, party members' signatures? Whose signature, please?
Essentially, it's the electorate. It doesn't have to necessarily be a party member to affix that signature. Okay. The parties now have to identify their candidates, the field of candidates representing the various regions and so forth. And of course, who is the presidential candidate of that list? Who is the leader of that list? And of course, the leader of the list is and there's a leader of the list and there's a deputy leader of the list. And the leader of the list is the person identified by that particular political party as the individual who has the authority to write to the Ghana Elections Commission to say, for example, I, Christopher Jones, leader of the list, hereby extract Wayne Caesar to be a member of parliament or the Regional Democratic Council. So those parties have to submit that list, inclusive of who is the leader of the list, and of course the presidential candidate. There are also some timelines. It's essentially on a first come, first served basis, because if I get to make my submission to GCOM first, and my list has a Wayne Caesar, a second political party comes in after me and submits their list, and on their list has a Wayne Caesar who happens to be of the same address, the same region, or likely the same ID card number. The second party that came will have to remove Wayne Caesar from their list, and they have to quickly identify somebody to replace that signature. So therefore, I submitted it first, so therefore Wayne Caesar goes on my list. So you have that too, so parties who will be vying for that particular timings and so forth. So that is what is going to happen on the 14th of July. Those names are going to be submitted. At the end of the electoral process, when there is the allocation of seats for the various political parties, then Party A have to extract 32 persons. Party A has to go back to that list, and you have to be on that list in order for the political party to extract you from that list. And important on that note, too, as mentioned before, it is not a case of which it is an individual. It is not, for example, it is not Christopher Jones who went and campaigned and the people voted for Christopher Jones, and therefore I can make a decision based on Christopher Jones. The people go out and they vote for a slate or a list of a political party. So therefore, I am a representative of the people via the political party of which lists I have been extracted from to represent.
Well said. Well said. So members of parliament is not directly elected by the people. They are a part of that list. And then the leader of the list will make the determination, right? Chris, make sure I'm getting this right, as to who goes to parliament and who does not go to parliament. All right.
That's correct.
Well said.
That's
well
correct.
said. Thank you. Thank you. So you guys understand how it works when it comes to nomination day and the submission of the symbols. The symbols was submitted on the 20th of July. And okay,
June.
28th of June. Okay, great. I have a question with regards to GCOM. If you are a small party and you would have submitted your symbols and go through the entire process, it means that you are a part of the process. So I ask the question, why are you not eligible, or why don't you have access to all the data that the larger parties have access to? Just want to push that by you.
So, all right, you'll have to expand a bit on that, Wayne.
Well, I understood that, for example, the AFC requested data from GCOM, and they were denied.
You know which specific data they wanted?
I guess they wanted, like, what would I say? Do you guys already have SOPs? Do you guys already have like anything pertaining to voters, maybe prior year, or I don't know what exactly they wanted, but they wanted data, regarding the voters from GCOM, and they
right.
Yeah, they were denied access to that.
Right. Well, okay. So I'm unaware of the specific matter that you raised. So I don't want to mislead the viewers. Only the Ghana elections. I'm not certain. I'll have to check to get that information and probably share it in a future program.
Well, Chris, let me generalize it. Does all the parties have access to the data that the PNC would have access to? Statement of polls, amongst other things. Would all the parties, or you would have to be under the cluster of APNU to have access to that? Or can a small party poll and have that data available to them?
Right. So I would say that whatever information the Ghana Elections Commission is making available to political party A, therefore political party B, C, D, right down the gamut, should have access to the very same information. Once it is information that the Ghana Elections Commission is making available to the political parties.
Okay, so that means that everyone is eligible. Okay, that's good. And here comes
right. So I'm being guided that the Alliance for Change requested the OLE, the official list of electorates, and apparently only the major parties got the list from the Ghana Elections Commission. I'm not certain why that would be, because the official list of electors should be made available to all of the political parties that are contesting the elections, and more so that the parties have made their submission of their symbols, their parties that are known, because the Alliance for Change is not a new political party. It's been there for a number of years. So therefore, it is strange as to why the Ghana Elections Commission will only make the list available to the major political parties and not all of the political parties that are contesting these elections.
Well, I guess the two major political parties, because like you said, the AFC has been around for quite a few years, and they're a mid-sized type of party, but the information is only available to the PPPC and APNU. Okay,
so and that should not be.
That should not be, right?
Because,
Yeah, I'm saying
it should not be
you,
because because it allows, as you see, okay, well, in a truly democratic society, in which political parties has no influence, as we know is the case with the PPP and the Ghana Elections Commission, because say that without fear, we know that they have influence there. We've seen the pattern as to how the chairman of the Elections Commission votes every time, along with the People's Progressive Party Civic. But in a truly democratic society, and this is what, well, I note the international community is paying keen attention to these elections, because elections essentially are lost long before E-Day with simple things like this. Because if political parties are denied access to the official list of electors, how do I go out there and scrutinize that list? Because that list may have John Jones living at lot X4, and you turn up there, nobody knows who is John Jones, and or there's no such address, and so forth. So it is already turning out to be one of those elections that we've witnessed before, with the interference from the PPP, in which political parties are being denied access to the official list of electors. The official list is not a secret document. All that is there is the names of people who are on the list from the various regions, and it should be made available to every. Listen, it should even go beyond that. I think by now the official list of electors should be published on the you should be able to access it on a website. You should be able to access it there, because now, you know, we encourage people to go and ensure that the names are on the list. The names are on the list. The old-fashioned way is, like, for example, where I live in Georgetown, we know that our list is published at Turning Point on the building there, and we go there and check. But in this modern age, with access to social media and the various devices and so forth, person can go on their phone and access it. And therefore, the Ghana Elections Commission, and I'm thinking that it might be a statement, because I'm certain that you can have access to view the voters list via a website. And I think what GCOM might want to argue is that they don't want to print a physical copy. I rather suspect it might be
yes.
But listen, these are elections. The AFC is a political party that is contesting these elections, like all of the other parties, and they should have equal access to the list if they want it print or non-print. They must have access to the official list of electors.
But, Honorable former Member of Parliament, I will say this.
Yes.
If I am interested in rigging something, I would want a limited amount of people to have access to that. I wouldn't want you, the audience, parents and their grandparents and all of you to have access. That's too much people who have the evidence of me rigging or attempting to rig. Okay? I agree with you. That's the reason why I brought the question up, because I believe that all parties should have access to that database or to that data. But since it is, and you talk about GCOM working hand in hand with the PPP, I know that you're a former Member of Parliament and what I hope will be a future Member of Parliament. I don't want you to go out on the line, but I'm going to say it because I am not a Member of Parliament and I'm not going to be a future Member of Parliament. GCOM is an extension of the PPPC. So is the Guyana Police Force. All right? I notice your force vice president is trying to distance the PPPC from the Guyana Police Force. How do you do that? That cannot be done. You can't see something happening for 5 years and then at the 24th hour, you want to separate yourself from the Guyana Police Force. But I'm going to deal with the Guyana Police Force later. Depending on time, we can touch on that. But yes, I agree with you that GCOM works hand in hand with the PPPC, and by extension, Barry Jagdeo. I believe that that's where, the word comes from. Do not give access to AFC. And maybe that's also the thought process that you guys, the AFC, is going to join APNU. And with that, Mr. Jones, I ask you, what are the chances of this thing working out before the 14th?
Right. So I wouldn't be able to give you insight information into that because I'm not part of the negotiation team. But I want to iterate what I said earlier, that the presidential candidate of the APNU, Aubrey C. Norton, has said and has been saying ad nauseum that the doors continue to be open. And once those political parties have shared common interests for the betterment of this country, the APNU coalition, the doors are open. And as I mentioned, those doors will remain open to the 12th hour on or before, hopefully, July the 14th, 2025. The doors are still open.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Brother Nigel Hughes, let's get this working. All right, let's get the apparatus working. Let's get this done. The Guyanese people would love this. It would bring additional reinforcements and some measure of strength. Okay, because I believe that the AFC still have something to offer in a coalition. All right, I think you guys should take the opportunity. All right. All right, Mr. Jones, I'm going to give you the first opportunity to talk about something that I have not questioned you about. You can kick up the conversation and I will join you.
All right, sure, no problem. But let me quickly, as given the opportunity as co-host, let me quickly, for those persons who just joined the program, we're here tonight talking about several topics, but one very important I want to drive home is this Sunday, the 6th of July, the APNU will officially launch its political campaign for the 2025 general and regional elections. That rally is going to be had on the Square of the Revolution. It commences at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. For those persons who have an elderly relative that may be looking for somewhere to sit to be comfortable, there are seating arrangements in place to accommodate the elderly. And of course, the program itself starts off proper at 5 with a cultural extravaganza from 5 to 6. And then we have the various speakers who will take to the stage. We will take the opportunity on this day to introduce to you some new faces gracing the stage as candidates of the APNU. I note that we would have already shared publicly Jarita Fernandez, who is the former member of the Alliance for Change, who is the presidential candidate of the APNU, Sherrod Duncan, who is no stranger to all and sundry, perhaps people all the way in Alaska. Sherrod Duncan is a candidate of the APNU. Mr. Ricky Ramsarup, another former member of parliament of the Alliance for Change, he too is a candidate of the APNU in these elections. And you have attorneys at law. One, you have Dr. Dexter Todd. Dexter Todd is a candidate of the APNU in these elections. And of course, the recent announcement, attorney at law, Ronald Daniels, no stranger. He too is a candidate of the APNU. There is a very long list of new candidates, new faces that have signed up and are candidates of the APNU. And of course, at the rally on Sunday, we're going to be presenting some of those new faces. And of course, some of those faces, very young faces, will be making their maiden presentation on the Square of the Revolution. And of course, we continue to invite you out to the Square of the Revolution in your numbers to show support to these young faces and of course have an opportunity to hear from them firsthand. The program of itself is going to be one very different. It's not just going to be a static stage appearance of which you have an MC and then they call one person, two person, so forth. It's going to be mixed with cultural extravaganza in between those items. And of course, Sherrod Duncan has a very special responsibility on the day in the audience. And of course, you should be part of the audience to be part of Sherrod Duncan's special program. So that is happening on Sunday, this Sunday, on the Square of the Revolution. It commences from 4 p.m. And of course, as we go into the evening, we will have the maiden presentation by the prime ministerial candidate, Jurita Fernandez, who hails from Bartica Region 7. And of course, you will hear from the presidential candidate, Aubrey C. Norton, who will outline his vision for Guyana 2025 and beyond.
You guys heard that loud and clear. Square of the Revolution, Sunday, July 6th, 4 p.m. sharp. I am sure that that will be broadcast right here on Benchop Radio 107.1 FM in its entirety. So I am looking forward to sitting in on that and really enjoying every bit of it. Can't wait to see what Sherrod Duncan has slated for everyone, because you guys know Sherrod Duncan is a very, very special individual. So I you know, Chris, it's funny because I really got into this whole thing watching 107.1 FM and watching you, Sherrod, and Randy do the recount for 2020. That's when I really got attached, you know, to Guyanese politics. You know, that was a really interesting time. And you speak of a lot of new and young faces. Well, just the other day, you were one of those faces. You talk like if you were 6 years old.
It's been such a long journey, but I kid you not, Wayne, I kid you not, viewers, I would not trade my journey with the PNC for anything in the world. I think when you and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, which I shared with you, and I think at the time you didn't know, but I actually started with the PNC in 1997. I caught the tail end of you, Desmond Hoyt.
Yes.
Yeah, and worked right through with Robert Corbyn. In fact, I serve as his public relations officer. I serve as the chairman of the GYSM, the youth arm of the PNC, and the list goes on. But the experience that one would have gained going about this country, speaking with the ordinary citizen, hearing their plight and their issue, whether it is on the quarantine course or whether it is in Region 1 or whether it's in the riverine areas of Region 1, Hobadiah, Hotaquai, Sacred Heart, St. Monica, the island, and the list goes on. And all of this would have been done from that period, as I mentioned, 1997, all the way up to 2011. It is service in an opposition political party. And having been part of so many protests against the People's Progressive Party Civic. And that's why when I tell people, I wouldn't trade the PNC for anything in the world, is because I know the beast that cloaks itself. You know, it's like they say, a wolf in sheep's clothing. That is the PPP. And all of these years, I've had that hands-on experience about the PPP. You could go far back as the killing of Jermaine Wilkinson in Albistown. And at the time with Jermaine, I left Jermaine's house probably like about 20 minutes and walked home on Smythe Street, which is just a little distance away. Saw the impact patrol vehicles blazing heading into Albistown. Then word got around that a person had gotten shot. Lo and behold, late in the evening, a relative of Jermaine came to my sister, because they were also friends, and told that Jermaine, the police just killed Jermaine Wilkinson. At the time, Janet Jagan was in the seat of president, and of course we know what happened in the election court case in which those elections were vitiated. But she was president. They hosted either independence flag raising or Republican flag raising, but because of the bad weather, they had to host this in the cultural center. And I was there with the Justice for Jermaine committee. You had Success Chance, God rest his soul. You had Heston Boswick, and the list goes on. We were out on the cultural center tarmac in the pouring rain, calling for justice for Jorman Wilkinson. And the list goes on. You had the Mandela Trio, in which the police with extrajudicial killing in this country was a norm under the PPP. You had the Mandela Trio, where the police just pulled over a vehicle. The suspicion of the vehicle is because it was carrying 3 Guyanese of African descent. So at that time, during the PPP's reign in office with extrajudicial killing, you created an offense if you happen to be more than 2 Guyanese of African descent, either walking together, in a vehicle together, or just liming somewhere together. You are subject, you can be subject
to execution.
Execution, harassment, or arrest. I recall when the PPP held one of its Congress, can't remember, somewhere within the Georgetown area, but because they wanted to ensure that the security is of such, the PPP ordered the Guyana Police Force to randomly go and pick up Guyanese of African descent. And you had over 100+ young men of African descent that the police just wantonly picked up, people who were going home from work, all because the PPP was hosting a Congress somewhere in Georgetown. I recall Nigel Hughes, God rest the dead, Deborah Baker, Raphael Trapman, Basil Williams, and these persons turning up at Brickdam Police Station to present themselves as lawyers to represent these individuals. When you speak with them, they were going home, riding a bicycle, and the police tell them, come, jump in the van. Mm-hmm. All of this transpired under the PPP. Then you went to, we recall the period of the Phantom Death Squad.
Yes.
I recently posted on my page in which you had a self-confessed Phantom Death Squad member, George Bacchus, who indicated his role and function in this execution squad, that the person who had responsibility for this Phantom Death Squad was former Minister of Home Affairs Ronald Gadraj. And he of himself said that when they were finished with him, that they send persons to execute him. And they happened to execute his brother, who looks like him. And George Bacchus is there in that BBC documentary titled Trouble in Paradise, in which he said that he called the Minister of Home Affairs, Ronald Gadraj, and he said, them boys just killed my brother. All of this is on tape. This is during Bharat Jagdeo's presidency. You understand me? And it is the same man who now cloaks himself in sheep's clothing and presents himself on Thursdays as the savior of Guyana. It is the same man. When I said to people that in all of my years in politics, all of my years in parliament, I've never uttered a word to Bharat Jagdeo. Not a good day, good morning, good afternoon, hi, hello, how you? Never did. Because every time I see him, it plays back in my head. When I served as the public relations officer to the then leader of the PNC, Robert Corbyn, during that Phantom Death Squad period, it was almost every other day we are attending funerals on the east coast of Demerara. Haslington, Beirut, Bachelor's Adventures, Victoria, you name it. Every other day we attending a funeral. And at that funeral, you see it's a 23-year-old, a 27-year-old, and at the casket is either the mother who is wailing for that youngster that has been killed, or his child mother or children mother, every single day. I kid you not, Wayne, is that because you wore black and red attire for those funerals. Literally every other day, I'm in that attire. And you go from funeral to funeral to funeral to funeral of young men that has been executed in this country under the People's Progressive Party Civic and under the leadership of Bharat Jagdeo. And that is why it pains me. It pains me when I see people of whatever ethnic persuasion touting Bharat Jagdeo as anything important and significant to this country. He is not. He is not. I've always said, like the Justice for German Committee of Albay been saying, is that Bharat Jagdeo should have been before The Hague. answering
time ago.
crime against humanity.
A long
You
time
understand?
ago.
And I watched this man on a Thursday with a cup, and the cup reads "bless." You understand me? And people are there and then touting and promoting Bharat Jagdeo, who has responsibility or had responsibility when this country had a phantom death squad at play, and one of his own sitting ministers, who the self-confessed phantom member, said that he was the person in charge of that. And even further, you had the period of the Roger Khan period. You remember Roger Shahid Khan did nothing wrong. Roger Khan at the time, recall Roger Khan driving into the office of the president without stopping. Once the vehicles are coming through, the gates are open wide and he drives in, gone all the way up to Bharat Jagdeo, and so forth. You had the police at Pleasant or Sparendam that intercepted the vehicle, which had a active member of the Guyana police force, and you had this the spy equipment, that computer,
Yes.
in their
Yes.
person.
Yes.
And when we did our investigation, we found, because this type of equipment, this computer, could only be purchased by governments. Only governments has the authority to purchase this equipment, and it was bought out of Florida. And when we did our investigation, we found that a letter was dispatched from the letterhead of the then Minister of Health, Dr. Leslie Ramsamy. And he wrote to the person there in Florida, I think her name was Nancy, and he stated, and I don't want to, I'll misquote, but I'll paraphrase, essentially saying, "Dear Nancy, this is to confirm with you that the government of Guyana, the People's Progressive Party Civic Government of Guyana, has authorized the purchase of this sophisticated piece of spy equipment." Signed at the bottom, Dr. Leslie Ramsamy, Minister of Health. All of this evidence that we had presented there, and this was during the period when Bharat Jagdeo was president of this country. Same man. You know the saying, you can take the pig out of the mud, but you can't take the mud out of the pig. Don't matter how many suits or how many cups Bharat Jagdeo has on his press conference desk that reads "bless" means anything different. He should be before the Hague. And these elections are what the Guyanese people have to take the opportunity to rid this country once again of the likes of Bharat Jagdeo. Because the PPP, Wayne, is not the same PPP of Dr. Chedi Jagan. It is not the same. And
you
if
know,
you
Chris,
sorry,
I doubt it would be the same also with a Bharat Jagdeo being gone. I believe that party may somewhat change, but still, Anil Nandalal also, that's another questionable one, you know. Please don't leave him out. Don't leave him out, because I always make sure that I ask him for an update on the execution of our brother Courtney Crum Ewing. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Case in point. You know, today, Wayne, as we speak, you know, today happens to be the anniversary of when several persons were slaughtered outside of the office of the president. And do you know that today is also the anniversary of the host of this program, Mark Benchcap, that he was arrested on this day and subsequently charged for treason. And it was the same day that outside of the office of the president, right there on New Market Street, several persons were shot and killed. Today is that anniversary. Listen.
On the Bharat Jagdeo.
Put the politics aside for 1 second. Let's just look at the parties. Every time the People's Progressive Party Civic is in office, you go back to the history, it is always issues of such You had the Lusignan massacre, the Bartica massacre. You had the sitting minister Satnio Saw, who to this day, Wayne, the People's Progressive Party Civic has not launched an investigation into his murder. And as recent as last year, his relatives continue to call for justice for Satnio Saw. Now, make that make sense, that you have a sitting government in office and its sitting minister and his siblings and the security was slaughtered. And to this day, many moons after, the PPP has not launched an investigation.
Because they would be investigating themselves.
There you go. There you go. You look back at under the APNU very short tenure. And when you say to people that the APNU did what they could have done without oil resource, I don't think people truly understand the significance of oil revenues compared to a period when you hadn't access to oil revenues. The APNU was able to raise public servants' salary folds by folds without oil revenue. The APNU was able to start the construction of the road network in Mabaruma, in Lethem, in Port Kaituma, communities in which the PPP was in office at that time for 23 years and never did it. It was under the APNU that you have tongues that were established.
Let them, right? Let them.
Exactly. 23 years under the PPP, they go to Bartica, they tell the people in Bartica, oh, we love you, and we will do. They never sought to make Bartica a tongue. And what is this? People say, well, oh, you just make it a tongue. We make it a tongue. The significance of a tongue is that it allows more commerce. It allows banks to set up there, because you have people in these areas, if they have a check and they want to cash that check, they either travel to Georgetown, pay is a huge amount of monies to travel, accommodate themselves and travel back. And by the time they reach back home, they have less than the amount of money.
Check done.
But now you have you have banks that are set up there that they have access to, or they could have given somebody in the community the check. The person said, all right, for cash, this check is $10,000. They don't lose money and so forth. And the APNU did this in Bartica, in Lethem, in Mahdia. When the PPP speak about places like Mahdia, they say, oh, you're going in the bush. You know, you're going in the bush. It was the APNU AFC government that sought to bring an end to the distinction between Georgetown and the hinterland. And they established these things. It was under the APNU government that we introduced a program, the 5 Bs: boats, bicycles, buses, backpacks, and breakfast. The PPP has been in office for 23 years. Jagdeo and all of them toured all over this world in the 23 years that they've been in office with their diplomatic visa. And they never sought to come back to Guyana with a very small population and start purchasing one by one little yellow bus for carry we picnic to school. It was the APNU in its short tenure introduced buses that those buses used to traverse these communities, pick up your child, take them to school in comfort, pick them up back and take them home. Peace of mind for parents. Parents don't have to take the child to school, then go to work and reach to work late. We took care of that. And do you know, Wayne, of the amount of monies, millions of dollars have been saved by parents across the length and breadth of this country? You go to the riverine communities in the Pomeroon rivers and so forth, and you have children who gets up and they start to paddle to school from as early as 6 o'clock. While we were in opposition before 2015, and we visit these communities and so forth, teachers in these areas and parents, particularly teachers, used to complain that when the children get to school, for some reason, when they started to put the lessons on the board, when they look back, half of the class is asleep. Why? Because the children are up since 6 o'clock and they're paddling their canoes to get to school. The PPP was in office for 23 years, Wayne. 23 years. And when the PPP ministers visit those riverine communities, you know what they used to do? Take pictures of the little Amerindian children in the canoes. They're like, oh my God, this is so cute. And they show them to the friend, look, these children, and they paddle. For them, it was cute. But for us, as an alternative government, we recognize that this is an issue that has to be corrected. And in those riverine areas, the APNU government introduced boats, shedded boats, to stop at every deck and pick up those children and take them to school. What happened there? They were able to get a good long night's sleep. They didn't have to get up at 6 in the morning. The parents didn't have to find, because in some cases in the Pomeroon River, it is $2,500 one way to get a child to school. And what we also observe is like a family who has 3 children at $2,500 per child to get to school. The parents have to make a decision as to which one of the 3 we think might be more brighter than the other, and we can send he and left she be. That's what used to happen.
And that should never be.
It should never be. And when the APNU introduced that 5B, boats, bicycle, buses, backpack, and breakfast, you go back to the Ministry of Education, the prayer would want to make that available, but you saw the attendancy at schools went up percentage because children had access. Similarly, in Lethem, in some of those satellite villages, the children walk, my brother. Walk. These children, just like the ones in the riverine area, gets up early and they start walking the trail. Dangerous trail. Like the ones in the river. Dangerous. Because could you imagine you watch your 3 children go off in a little canoe?
And the place is still dark. And the place is still dark.
And you know how deep, for example, deep is that Pomeroon
What
River?
could be in that water?
What could be in the water? Who could pick them up? God forbid, all of these things. So when we say peace of mind that parents had, the children in Lethem or region 9, traversing, walking to go to school, walking, my brother. PPP was in office for 23 years. They never see the Amerindian children walk into school. It was the APNU government in its short year that started providing those children with bicycles so that they can ride and get to school and back home. All of this without oil resources. Some of the police stations, like the one at Fort Wellington, the one at Anna Regina, and so forth, built by the APNU without oil resource. You know when these people got into office in 2020, what they do? They never held a commissioning ceremony for those stations because it was built by us. So the police just gradually move over and start occupying, but they want people to say, oh, his Granger built. And they were in office, my brother, for 23 years.
Also, a lot of the projects that they're picking up now and completing, it's you guys who initiated those projects, who put together those plans, and they give you guys absolutely no credit for it. None at all. Look, I am looking here in the comments, and this gentleman here, Ian Williams, he says, Wayne, I want to know how our people forgetting all these things. All right? All the things that these criminals did to people. He further said, I am not racial, but I think something is wrong with our people. Well, I tell you this, Chris. the people are starting to pivot, because I sat down in my office here today and I decided that I'm going to turn on Barry Jagdeo press conference on Newsroom, Chris. And there was about 163 people. That's to show you that the Guyanese people are starting to get it. They are not tuning in anymore on towards this or that comedy show. All right.
Exactly.
The PPP is in grave trouble. All right. They are major trouble. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Look, Chris, you are just expounding about the extrajudicial killings under the Barry Jagdeo-led PPPC government. But come, let's turn to as recent times, the tragedies that would have happened under the PPPC, where officers ordered a team to Orange Boston House and have him executed in his bed, sleeping with his wife.
Yeah.
Executed, and they tried to cover that too. Peter Headley executed. They executed Donald Allison. And we cannot forget Donald McKinnon, Monica Reese, Ronald Waddle, and the list goes on and on. Our brother Courtney Crum Ewing. And then look at it.
Yeah.
Look at it, the two young men in Linden. This just happened.
Yeah.
This is going to be on the ballot, my brother. All of these things are going to be. Look, when we go to the ballots, ladies and gentlemen, Guyanese across the board, y'all listen carefully. When you go to the ballots, you got to think about these parties and think about their track record. It's not about who is in charge of the wealth. Think about the track record. You see some infrastructure, yes, but we also see 53% of Guyanese living in poverty.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Brother Christopher, your leader, APNU, have the solutions to all these issues. Rent to own. Rent to own. That's going to go a far way to alleviating poverty. The largest bills, the largest expense that households have month to month, for the most part, is rent.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
You guys are addressing that. You guys are going to make sure that education is robust for the Guyanese people. That is important.
Yeah.
Up that matriculation rate. You guys handed over a very good matriculation rate to the PPPC. Last time we checked was 24%. Last time we checked was 24%, and we had 3 consecutive, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jones, 3 consecutive $1 trillion budget for this PPPC.
Oh, yes.
And they
biggest
keep going
budget
back to
ever.
more money. They went back for this last 57.7 billion or whatever it was for campaign. That's what they went for it for. It's not to do nothing. It's to try to pay the Guyanese people. And you guys got to understand, this money that they're going to pay you is not going to last you no time. You need sustained. You need to be able to earn and sustain life, not to just get a change, a handout to put your vote at a big all red empty cup. The cup is empty. There's nothing in there. 23 years, a stadium and a flimsy Borbies Bridge. In 23 years, they could not have even taken care of GWI and GPL. The coalition came in from 2015 to 2020 and did an excellent job. I was in Guyana, so I can speak to this. No blackout. Proper water to drink. I'm not there attempting and seeing something coming out like coffee through the pipe to have a bath and to have a drink of water. All right? We have to do standards have to change in Guyana. Go ahead, Chris.
Exactly. Look, Wayne, listen, I and that's why it boggles the mind. What exactly, I mean, is it that race voting has dominated us to the point in which, because I support PPP and I know I'm getting a starvation wages and salary, I can't even make ends meet at the end of the month. But because they look like me, I can vote for them and suffer. It doesn't make sense. And then when you go for a visit, an overseas trip, you're like, oh God, America, nice. This place is sweet. And you love that. But and then you come back to Ghana, you're willing to accept the impoverished system that we have here. You mentioned, Wayne, about the water supply. Just earlier tonight on social media, somebody posted, I've been posting for months, the situation we're going through in Tocqueville with water supply. When the APNU was in office, without oil resource, communities used to enjoy a 24 hours per day water supply. That water used to come to the second floor or the first floor of your home. Now, water is rationed. By a certain time tonight, if you don't get to the pipe, water is cut off. And then when you get the water, like for example, if you want to wash, well, first it started with the white clothes. You have to set your bucket overnight and then throw off the water at the top. Now the water is till the water settle. But here what happened? No, it's so bad you can't even wash color clothes with it because there's a stench. There's a stench in the water that everybody got their little black tanks. Right. And you probably may clean or wash with your black tank like 6 months and them thing. I kid you not. Within a month and a half, the amount of settlement in your black tank that you got to, and it's not being corrected. And the thing is that I saw a lady, I think she's at Tuition, and it's on social media this afternoon, right? I'm in Georgetown, and I'm not connected to Tuition that we could say, well, we get the water from the state, but we get the water from two different sources, and it's the same problem. And it's repeated itself across this country. Now, you explain to me that you are living in a country that is the fastest growing economy in the world, that you're producing oil, and you people, and the government like to talk about 4-lane road and lights here and building a bridge, but the average people in the capital city of Georgetown can't turn on the pipe to wash clothes and drink because you ain't gonna take the chance. They can't turn on the pipe to get water to wash clothes. Then the other thing is electricity. Well, the amount of blackouts we get in, bro.
Chris, I'm going to jump you on that one. Electricity. So I decide to pick up my phone and call into Pleasance on Tuesday. So when I call into Pleasance and thing, the person that I call answer the phone and then tell me all of a sudden, Wayne, I got to go. So when I call back my friend said, man, you calling, and as soon as you calling, light went off. It's like I shouldn't have called. Light went off. And he said, when light went off around what time I call? I probably call around 1:30, 2 o'clock, and lighting come on back until like 7 o'clock in the evening, man.
Yeah.
I want to know what's going on. And then you're hearing, Chris, about outsourcing Guyana Power and Light. No, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. We are having $1 trillion budget, and we are looking to outsource our electricity and have somebody come from outside where we probably end up paying more. You understand me? Mm-hmm. So deal with our issues regarding electricity.
But the question you gotta ask is who they're sourcing it to. And I bet you somebody has a relationship with that person.
Absolutely.
Like for example, the power ships are out there. Is who ship? Who power ship? Who getting paid? And that's PPP, PPP is a transactional government. Anything they do, it has something behind it. Like for example, with the cash grant that they went giving out. Remember we asked the questions like, listen, you took people ID card information, whatever. Okay, most of the people got bank account. Like for example, the public servants. Public servants are paid every month. The police, the soldiers, and all that get paid every month via the bank, right? Why is it that the PPP can't just transfer this money to the people's bank account? Like you get a message, ping, $100,000 in your bank account. But no, the transaction of the PPP is that they want to show the world, look, we got people line up because we're giving away money. And then the DPI and the National Comedy Network, NCN, is there with the cameras, and they go and they ask people loaded question. You really appreciate this $100,000, right? And the person said, well, yes, I really appreciate, and that's what they want. So the part with the reporter asking, you really appreciate this $100,000, right? The part you don't hear, but you hear the response, yes, I appreciate this $100,000.
The optics. The optics they're trying to create.
That's what that is what PPP is about.
Here, they ain't showing grandma and grandpa fainting away on the line, though.
No, they can't.
Right? The line grandpa and grandma waiting on, and they're fainting away and all kind of thing on the lines. They're not showing that.
Exactly.
They won't want that and this is to be displayed out.
Correct. And these are the people's money. It's your money. Like, I've been speaking to some of my youngsters who got a contract and believe, and this is how the PPP has conditioned people in this country, that if you get a contract, is that, you know what? You got say use PPP. You got come to the barbecue to get put on a red jersey and walk around. I said, what is the matter with you? You are a Guyanese. You have a right. It is not a privilege. PPP ain't giving you a contract as a privilege. You have a right as a Guyanese. And that is what I say to people is that, listen to me. If you get a contract or contracts on the PPP, got to go. Don't believe that by virtue of that, you have to vote for the PPP. Because the APNU, the presidential candidate of the APNU is on record that he said those persons who get the contract got to go. But the APNU will ensure that it's streamlined as such that if you, Wayne Caesar, get a contract from an APNU-led government, I don't have to come and say, well, Wayne, look, you're up New Jersey, you got to wear this and you got to come to barbecue. Those people, like, they had a barbecue or whatever, the convention center, they had another activity at the Leonore Stadium. It is the 10 days workers, for example, who were mandated that they have to turn up. They have to go, and 10-day workers came as far as Region 5 and had to go to Region 3 to be present. And then every one of those 10-day workers, they have like a supervisor or person who's in charge of various groups. And he or she is there with the list and they're looking for my group. And if they don't see Wayne Caesar next day, Wayne, me see you at the barbecue. Meanwhile, here though, you're after the and getting paid. That is what's happening. That is what the PPP is doing to Guyanese in this country. And that is what we have to change.
I saw a picture with little children also. You shouldn't be doing that.
Correct.
Little children with PPPC t-shirts.
Correct.
That's to show you these guys, they know that they're in trouble. You can see it in Barry Jagdio's posture. You can see it. But you know something, Chris? It is time. It is time. And I guarantee you, come September 1st, once and for all, the Guyanese people will throw out the garbage. They will.
Exactly.
Okay? Exactly. The garbage will be going to the garbage truck. And Barry Jagdio is in the garbage. I just want him to know that. That's a member of parliament on the other side of the picture there. I'm not going to let him say it. I'm going to say it. You are going to be in the garbage, Barry Jagdio. Your time for having your thumb on Guyana is up. I told you that you are dealing with a different dispensation of Guyanese. We are no longer going to allow you to ravage the fabric of our country. All right? You are not given title to Guyana. Guyana belongs to all of us, all 6 ethnic groups. And we stand by our motto, one people, one nation, one destiny. And down the toilet goes one Guyana. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah. So, Wayne, again, these elections are upon us. The history, you elect people to higher office based on their track records, based on their history. And even this last 5 years that we've had of the PPP, one would have believed that after being ousted from the 2015 elections, that the PPP would have changed their ways, that they would have approached things much differently. They have gotten worse. There is now the weaponized, they have weaponized the Guyana police force. I know you said that you're going to come to that later. And this is not a topic that I want to shy away from, or any of the candidates shying away from. The PPP has weaponized the Guyana police force. The Guyana police force is a weapon that is used by the PPP conveniently to go after persons who they deem a threat, who they deem as a person who spoke out that should not have spoken out. They have, to a large extent, weaponized the Guyana Elections Commission We saw recently the attorney at law of GCOM, because he shared a view, he shared information that is pertinent related to the Constitution of Guyana. And we saw what he did, or what happened to him, that he was immediately dismissed. And the chairman of the Elections Commission participated in that dismissal of him as well too. We've seen that. Guyana is at a place that Guyana should not be after how many years of being an independent nation. Guyana is at a place that it should not be after now being a country that is producing oil. And we are saying simply to the Guyanese people, that is the APNU, that on September 1, you have an opportunity to put a government in place that puts people first. I recall in the parliament some years ago making a presentation and relating to the transformative projects that were done under my tenure as Director of Sports from the National Sports Commission. And I was being heckled by Attorney General Anil Nandalal. He kept shouting, "Show me where your bill, show me where your bill, tell me where your bill, tell me where your bill." And the point was that it is not buildings, it is we built the human capital. What has been the development of the people of Guyana? And that is how the PPP has their priority mix. Now, infrastructure development is most important for a country that is developing. We understand that. But equally, you have to ensure that the human capital is developed. We continue to pay, the PPP continues to pay public servant starvation salary. The PPP don't negotiate with the unions, or they have agreement with unions that they don't honor. And then later on, you hear an announcement of 8%, 5%, or whatever the case be. And they are so wicked in how they do it. They wait until December, Christmas, where all the Caribbean know when it comes to Guyanese and Christmas, it's the most important thing we buy and spend and behave and whatever. And that's when they retro monies from January, dump it in you, and everybody like, yay, PPP do well. And when you reach to January and they get that January pay slip, and they realize the increase that the PPP give them is $500. That happened January, every January going back under the PPP. The APNU in government, we start to remove this 10% or whatever percentage across the board. Because 10% for a person who getting $100,000 is $10,000. He getting $110,000. But 10% for somebody who getting 2.4 or $1.4 million is $140,000 added on that. And the APNU start to correct that folly. And the people at the lowest level, they receive the highest percentage of increase in wages and salary. And the people who receiving the highest wages and salary, they got the lowest percentage of increases. Right. The PPP, those ministers.
That doesn't equate to them not having a good raise, but you got to look at their income, right? It is based on your income bracket.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That is why the APNU, once in government, the income tax threshold is going to be moved to $400,000 a month. Everybody who receives under $400,000 a month pay zero taxes. That is what we're going to bring. More money, more disposable income in your pocket.
Pockets, right. And that there, right, what you just said there, Chris, is going to go a long way to alleviating poverty. You know, disposable income in your pocket equal to what? Guyanese mother, father, 2 children being able to go on a little vacation, being able to do, you know, additional things rather than just have to be worrying about how you're going to pay your rent or how you're going to pay your mortgage. So no, these are good things. And Chris, you got to understand. You got to understand this also. When you look at the PPP and you look at the APNU, man, across the board, you can see that there's deficiencies on one side when it comes to the level of intelligence and execution, man. So sometimes when you say these things about the PPP, you know, I am not surprised. I am never surprised, man. All right? I am never surprised. I call for these guys to debate you guys. I have called for it many times for us to have debates. Even Barry Jagdeo, the PPP know that they're sitting in there because they use their propaganda machines and it got them there the last time. But to all those exterior agencies that is coming into Guyana to look and do oversight with this elections, I am asking them to do the right and democratic thing. Okay, because you can't give to the Guyanese people something that they don't want. And that is what essentially happened the last time. And it must not happen this time. Over to you, Chris.
No, I agree with you totally, Wayne. I know I look at your time, I see that the clock is winding up. Right. Yes. So as I said before, the APNU presents to the Guyanese people an alternative. We have demonstrated while in office our ability. We have demonstrated that we put people first. And of course, that is one of the slogans of this election cycle, putting people first. These oil resources and the revenues from oil resources, it has to benefit the people of Guyana. People have to have access to land in which they don't have to pay those exorbitant amount of monies. The public servants and the policemen and nurses and so forth, they have to see a significant increase in their wages and salaries. We will bring down the cost of living in this country. You spoke about vacation, Wayne. You know, hundreds of thousands of Guyanese public servants can't say that they've been on a vacation with their wife, child mother, children mother, whatever, and children. They've never been. They just can't afford it. But the PPP elites, they wouldn't know what they're talking about because they do that every so often. Oh, we went to Dubai. If you see how this place, they've been these places. So when the average public servants trying to do these things, the most they can go is from Georgetown to Splashmans on the Linden Highway. That is the vacation. We have to bring an end to that. We will be putting people first. We will ensure that the resources of this country goes to the development of the country and the people of this country. We demonstrated it. We spoke about those very important programs that the APNU executed while in office, and that is without oil resource. Now imagine if we get the opportunity with oil resources. You know, you haven't even seen the PPP try to mimic programs like those, like the 5Bs initiative. Now they have the oil resources. You thought that the finale we would have seen 100, 200 big yellow buses coming that AFRAM want to demonstrate what is transit. We haven't seen that. The boats that used to traverse the Borbis River to take people to and from the youngsters to school, they had them parked at the old stelling, and they were rot. The engines were taken away. We saw one of the bus park outside of the Ministry of Education there on Crowell Street, that it was vandalized and burnt. We saw some of those buses, some of the PPP activists now use those buses to transport PPP activists to and from in Region 5. And the list goes on.
Buses that should be used for the students. Buses that should be used for the students. And Chris, you just hit on something there. Look, the rich, like the PPP, for example, there is a massive gap between the PPPC, the hierarchy, and the normal man and woman in Guyana. They just do not understand, you understand me, what these people are facing on a daily basis, and they don't seek to understand what these people are facing on a daily basis. So there's a massive gap, and I believe that the APNU will bridge that gap tremendously because they have proven before, I am going based on track record, that they are by far more of a people-centric government. Okay? And like you would have said earlier, they focus massively on human development, human capital. Your country, look, you can do how much infrastructure you want to do. Your country will not go anywhere without a proper educated people. And that is what I believe that the APNU plus AFC, well, I don't know if the AFC is going to be a part, but APNU, okay, is going to do for Guyanese. Correct. So I encourage everyone. As we prepare to close, Chris, and I'm going to ask you for your closing remarks after this. I encourage everyone to go ahead and vote APNU. Vote for change. Your vote also needs to be safe. And your vote is safe with a presidential candidate like Aubrey C. Norton and a prime ministerial candidate like Joretta Fernandes. When you go to empty their suitcase, it must be a quick 5 or 10 minute job. You mustn't be in the suitcase all night, 24 hours, or you got to detain them because they're bringing so much baggage with them. All right? You need to be concise. Like I always say, you need to vet your leader. Be concise and know where you're putting your vote. Vote for that change. Christopher, your closing remarks, sir.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Wayne. To the viewers out there, we are essentially in an election campaign, and we want to encourage you to go to the various websites of the APNU, the various social media platform in which we are posting information in terms of our policies for education, for agriculture, for housing, for infrastructure development, for healthcare, etc. All of the information is there. Very soon, there will be the call center that will be set up, and persons will have the opportunity to call in to ask any question as it relates to whether the campaign is going to come to a particular community, or if you just want to get some information about our policies and so forth. We are prepared, as we have been in 2015, to take this country forward. We didn't have the opportunity at that time with the oil resources that is now available, but we demonstrated to you. We kept the lights on in your homes. We allowed you portable, clean water. We educate your children that we continue for 3 consecutive years to top the Caribbean. We continue to keep you safe. One of the hallmarks, one of the many hallmarks of the APNU, and many Guyanese, particularly those overseas, will tell you that during the APNU government, they felt safe being in Guyana. We professionalized the Guyana police force, of which you had a force that used to work for the people and not against the people. The Guyana police force at that time conducted investigations of which the perpetrators of criminal act were taken into custody. We did all of that. We built infrastructure. We laid the foundations in Madia, in Lethem. We created townships, communities, satellite communities that had no access to information. We introduced all of those various radio stations across the country that they now listen to and have access to information, because we believe then, as we certainly do now, that an informed nation will make an informed decision. We plead with you that in the days and weeks to 2025 elections, that you come out and show your support for the APNU and the coalition parties that are part of the coalition. And first and foremost, we invite you out to the Square of the Revolution this Sunday at 4 p.m., of which we will have the official launch of the APNU coalition campaign. We will introduce to you the new faces, the new candidates of the APNU, and you will hear from the prime ministerial and the presidential candidates of the APNU.
Well, could not have closed better than that. I am not going to add much more to that, but say thank you so much, Honorable former MP, and I would hope future MP, Mr. Christopher Jones. Thank you so much, Chris, and I do look forward to doing additional programs with you, man. You was a rock star tonight. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the listeners and viewers. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Tomorrow night, I believe, I know it's 4th of July, but I believe Mark will be there tomorrow night. I know it's 4th of July, but like Chris would have said earlier, we are now in an election cycle, so we are not going to be missing too many days. So thank you all for joining tonight, and until, take care, everyone. Thank you again, Chris. Good night, good night, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my X next to the cup. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
Oh, Jesus Christ, if cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a fortnight man.
I can't take it no more. I can't take it no more.
Sit there and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Zhirong?
Su? Oh, Su?
Persons can do so peacefully, and they can, but blocking the road for hours is something that affects
Mr.
all the
Ali,
citizens.
I saw you blocking road. Yes, Mr. Ali.
I'm just telling
Mr.
you.
Ali, there are videos with you protesting, you being a scrape and a tug. Mr. Ali, this is not, listen, sometimes we gotta put our position aside.
No, this is not
and
position.
we gotta put our position aside and place ourselves into people's shoes.